Hello, everyone. This is Jerry back at home. Looking forward to seeing all of you and talking with you. So glad you could come over. I'm a bit late because I was doing some research. It's amazing what happens when you're in quarantine. I all of a sudden accidentally am reviving my little knowledge of German by listening to music that's sung on the Berliner Philharmonic app website. There's something I would really highly recommend to all of you, and I'll talk about it at the end of this program. There's a program that's done on Berliner Philharmonic that is equivalent to the Beethoven Ode to Joy in front of the Nuremberg Gate, but different. So I will talk about that in a bit. Welcome you all here today, and look forward to, if you have any questions, to answering them by texting or emailing me, or, and I also want to remind you that everything will be posted on At Home with Jerry. Now, there's a very funny joke that goes with this, actually. My obsession with Victoriana in the 18th century, before and during the Victorian age, there was something called an at-home. Of course, in the Victorian age, an at-home was a very formal occasion. It was the one time when others could invade your privacy, as they would say in England. And an at-home invitation would be hand-delivered to whomever you would like to come and visit for a little bit and have a talk. And it all depended on who got the invitation. If any of you watched The Village, there's a very funny scene where the maid shows up in the garden and the lady of the house says, well, she hasn't received an invitation for tea. Shall we talk to her? Something like that. So anyway, an at-home was an invitation, like an open house a bit, but very select and just a few at a time, maybe one at a time almost. And the thing is, it would have to be delivered by a liveried butler in a carriage, or maybe a 1920s car. I'm not sure. I'm not sick. I just had an almond before I came on. I've just finished my tea because I got caught in research. Today is Sunday, so today we're going to talk about some devotional objects. And hi, Doug. Thank you for joining me. We're going to talk about some religious objects, several. I've got 3. And then I want to share a story that's related to music. It is just amazing. So today I'm going to start with the more complicated of the 3. This is probably hard for you to see, but this is a Saints' Day calendar from the 18th century, maybe even earlier, hand-colored, with all the saint days of February. I bought this because it was my birthday, and I just thought I needed to have it, of course. So I quarantine forces you to do all kinds of things. So I decided I would do research, and in the process, even improve my Latin, which I also love to have improved. So we'll start with, I have to look at it and tell you it's a little complicated here. I'm not a professional. But again, I'm at home anytime you want on At Home with Jerry. That was my daughter, my producer, and technical consultant, both thinking that was a good idea. I'm going to wave at you. Hi, Marina. Hi, Peter. All right, so up here we have Saint Blaise. So Saint Blaise was a saint. He has a beard, he's not a woman. He was a physician from Armenia. And he also, for all of you that are concerned about this, he's a patron saint of wool combers, which you may be doing because you have nothing else to do. And also throat disease, which is very relevant to the moment in the coronavirus. So next, over here, we have San Julian, which would be Saint John, the writer of the Gospel. Down here we have Saint Agatha. Can you see? I'm hoping that, okay, we're down at this part of it. So here's Saint Agatha over there. That's Saint Agatha. Saint Agatha is from Sicily, and she's from the 400s, and she's 5 of the only women commemorated in the Latin Mass. Then down here we have, I gotta go back here and look. Saint Scholas is up here. Scholas was a woman that is depicted, I could not find anything out about her, but she's depicted with the Holy Spirit coming and speaking to her. She was probably a martyr, but I don't know that. Saint Dorothy, down here, was a very interesting saint. There's not a lot about her, but she's a 4th century, there she is, right? Dorothy's right there. It's hard to read Latin backwards. Dorothy was a 4th century saint. She was a virgin martyr under Diocletian and was part of the Diocletian persecution. It was when he finally did away with her that Diocletian was forced to resign. How about that? The blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church. And then Saint Cyran was Saint Servius from 420, and he was an early bishop of Bordeaux. The centerpiece here is the purification of Mary, which is, it's a double day. It's celebrated on the 2nd, and it's also Candlemas. Now Candlemas, the word Candlemas, is 40 days after Jesus was born. Candlemas is, it's a conglomeration of 2 words, candle and mass, candle plus mass. And it was the beginning of our presenting ourselves to Jesus. That was on the 2nd of this year. This is especially important to me because I mentioned my trip to France and being in front of Notre Dame, the burned out carcass of Notre Dame, and feeling in touch with the saints. And a lot of us talk about the fellowship of saints as some kind of abstract idea, but as you can see, throughout the centuries, martyrs have been commemorated to show the importance of those who dwell with us in the present. I think I told you, but I'll repeat it again. I was in an Orthodox church waiting to talk to a musician, and it was late in the afternoon, there was no one there, and all of a sudden all the icons of saints on the walls just became almost 3-dimensional. I felt like they were there with me. It was quite an amazing experience, and that happened last December in France, and continues. Now, the purification of Mary is commemorated in the Catholic Church at the same time as Candlemas, and it's in the definition said Mary didn't need any purification because it was a Jewish law and she was a virgin. It's the issue of blood and all that after childbirth. But the more significant thing, I think, of Candlemas is the fact that 40 days after the child is born, it's presented in the temple, which I believe also coincides with the Jewish tradition of waiting for a while to decide what you want to name the child, to see what its traits are. As I mentioned before, train the child up in the way she should go, or he should go, and he will not depart from it. Well, that's the idea. Is exactly that Jewish idea that you look at the traits of the child and then name him because of the traits. So that's the 2nd of February is a very important date to me, and it's my birth month. Then down at the bottom you have St. Peter, the Prince of the Church, according to Catholic theology. So that's what we have on that. The next is very simple. It's for Christians, the hope of resurrection. This is a wonderful steel sculpture that was given to me by an artist, Tomas Fernandez. This is a replica of a huge cross that stands in Leesburg by a Catholic church there. They've just rebuilt the Catholic church in the most wonderful traditional architecture, and this remains outside, and the corpus is backlit. This is similar a bit to what I asked Tomas to do for, I think I've told you, but I'll repeat it. I'm working with there we go, that's better, opiate drug recovery center, hospital in West Virginia, right near the Veterans Hospital near Martinsburg, West Virginia, sorry. In fact, our fellow member and one of the men that helped me get involved with this, Brant Williamson, is in lockdown, as far as I know, in quarantine because of the outbreak. And I appreciate your prayers. It's called the Mountaineer Recovery Center. I appreciate your prayers for people there, and also people that you know are in lockdown and separated from their families. So this is Tomas. He created a cross that hangs in the chapel that we commissioned from him. And it's the same idea, but the cross is all made out of welded steel broken chains, or things to look like broken chains. And Christ's presence radiates out from it. And we placed it over a rock, which I found out later is dolomite, which is one of the rocks of West Virginia. And dolomite was the best example I could find of one of the stories that Jesus said, one of the sayings of Jesus that was the basis of the recovery center, and that is, faith can move mountains. The only mountain I could find anywhere that looked like it had been moved were the Dolomites, because they look like they're just popping up out of the gravel. Anything else depicted in art would look like sort of either, I always say, either a Sunday school illustration or something ridiculous, or just an earthquake. Anyway, so this is by Tomas Fernandez. When the Recovery Center reopens in Kearneysville, West Virginia, they would welcome you to come and take a tour, but you have to do it by appointment, another at home. The third object is also probably 4th or 5th century, and this is a casting. Hi, Naomi. Hey, Bill. Hey, Ken. Just waving. Just want to be sure here. Okay, so this is a sand casting that was found in a cave in Spain, and it's a very, very early Christian stone carving. And it was cast. They made a mold and cast it, and this particular one survived a flood, which made it look even older. I don't know when it was cast. It's not new, but it's nice and old looking. Anyway, this is the Nativity with Jesus and the donkeys. And you can see there's houses here, and there's a tower here. And Mary is giving the blessing over the child, and the animals are looking on. You know, there's a wonderful story, legend, that the animals spoke to each other on the night that Jesus was born. And in this particular case, it looks like Joseph's worn out. He's not worn out because of conception. He's worn out from trying to find a place for them to sleep at night. Next time I'll show you a depiction of this that's very similar and show this with it. So those are the three objects, but I want to close with something other than objects. I shared with some of you. Now, again, I want to recommend that you go to the app. It's free for a week, I think still. You can check, but it's worth joining. The Philharmonic, the Berlin Philharmonic, is just the most amazing series of concerts. They're all live streamed. It's just amazing. It's just astounding. So today I happened to decide to do it, and I wanted to do something for the Sabbath. And there were two things that happened today that I want to tell you about, and it's really important. The other is, first, Calvary St. George's in New York City, live stream sermon today is so powerfully moving. I was in tears most of the time because New York City, my daughter Rachel is there. I would appreciate your prayers. New York City is ground zero for the plague we're under right now. And the sermon and readings, the whole service to the very end was the most amazing thing, including the solo by this wonderful African-American singer. Anyway, it was on the dry bones. The story of the dry bones in Ezekiel was part of the lectionary, and then Paul talking about flesh, and and then the Gospel of John. It's absolutely wonderful, and the Gospel is about Lazarus. I would say today the theme of this Sabbath is death and resurrection, and I'd encourage you all. It's more poignant because of what we're facing right now. So, as I mentioned the other night or the other day. Talking about, maybe it was, I don't know when it was whenever I mentioned it. It was when I was at home with you, either in the afternoon or the evening. Anyway, I happened to tune in to Beethoven's Ode to Joy when it was performed. There was some anniversary, it was performed in front of the Nuremberg Gate with 100,000 people watching. And as I mentioned, it's such a miracle to think how the same race produced Beethoven and Hitler, and how the fact that they were sitting there in the summer being able to listen to this and actually singing the words in German, it was the most amazing experience, realizing that the hard-won freedom for the Germans was something that shows us that the old saying that for evil to prevail, good men do nothing. We did contribute to doing something to help defeat the Nazis, and anyway, I just, having been raised by German adoptive parents and family, it's amazing to me. It may not be as amazing to you, and it may not be quite as amazing because you don't understand German, but the music says everything. So today, I tuned in and I saw children's, and they were children playing instruments, children singing, and it was a whole production. It was the most amazing production. And you know, a lot of us in some parts of the Christian faith consider America a Christian country, and we pride ourselves in that. And it's a bit like the Pharisees with their control over society. However, what I saw today is you cannot believe that a culture that produced Hitler came out of that, and now is what most people here consider a godless country. Their educational system, I don't know what it is, but at least the Philharmonic did the most amazing production of Britain's Noah's Ark, Noah's Flood, Neue Flude, something like that. Anyway, even without knowing the words, there are many familiar hymns in the script and in the text that you can figure out. But to see these children doing, it's probably the best production of any kind of Christian themed thing I have ever seen anywhere. It makes Jesus Christ, superstar in our pop culture, look like silly. And it makes all of these so-called Christian productions and educational programs for children look a little insipid compared to that. And here it is being produced by a godless country and singing like the Navy hymn is in there, and everybody's singing along in German. It is just, It is just the most wonderfully uplifting thing. So there's always hope. And you know, a lot of people are blaming God for this plague. The plague comes because we live in a fallen world and there are germs and things happen. But that's placing the blame in the wrong place. And it's just so interesting because thinking about Germany, how easily the Germans could have said after the war, and did for many years, you know, why did God let this happen to us? He did it to us. He didn't. We do have, God has given us the power to do good, as well as the fact that we own the ability to do evil. So today I'd encourage you, again, to pray for those who've lost a loved one, whether it be martyr or someone in this present epidemic. Again, I wanted to repeat my condolences to the widow of the pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church in Harlem. He died of the coronavirus, and his wife's post was so poignant. She said his last words to me as he put his hand on the window was, "I love you," but she was separated by glass. So pray for all those people who are separated by this disease and by those who are dying, or like my friend Brant here at church, he can't come home. He hasn't been home for many weeks. Maybe he has, but I don't think so. I think he's still in quarantine, but he was for a very long time. And he probably will go again. Abigail, my daughter, works in the hospital, and if she shows any symptoms, she has to stay home and be quarantined, can't go to work. So for all of those who've lost their incomes, those who see April 1st as like doomsday because they have no money or food or a place to live, I'd encourage you both to listen to the today's service at Calvary St. George's, New York City. Jacob Smith is the rector. The whole thing is so wonderful. And then if you can, go watch the Noah's Flood, Noah's Ark production of Benjamin Britten on Berliner Philharmonic. So have a wonderful day of rest. I had to make my own tea today because my butler and maid were both out. It seems they're having an affair in the park. They like the spring weather, and so anyway, it's their day off, so I have to do some things for myself. I'm only joking. Anyway, I'm glad you came to my At Home, and I would love to see you tonight. We're going to read another chapter in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and it's getting thicker and thicker. So look forward to seeing you. Have a good day, and I'll see you both tonight and tomorrow for both times. God bless.